Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome to another scene for the living world of darkness rage across New York. We are setting this scene on the Sept of the Green and Umberside for once, as, God forbid, both people involved prefer that to the Tellurian. And 10 Point will probably have been about her usual shenanigans, which means a lot of tending to spirits, a lot of tending to shrines, some tending to the land, some tending to her packmates, a lot of tending all around, really. But some small bit of her free time lately is spent, in essence, playing with some of the rabbit spirits on Sept. She has taken to rather lively games of, you can't catch me with these rabbits, and will probably be in the midst of trotting out of one of the kind of open field areas, maybe the sheep's meadow or something like that, where there are portions Umberside that are more overgrown, less reflecting the perfectly manicured lawn in the Tellurian, and has been bounding in the high grass, doing those ridiculous kind of boing leaps after any number of rabbit spirits as they scuffle around and dart around and almost always perfectly evade her, even in lupus. It's a good way to get quick. I mean, it's discouraging because damn, they're quick, but it's nonetheless a quite fun game, and they seem to rather enjoy bouncing around her ankles and teasing her. So she will be in the midst of saying her farewell to them, very possibly, and trotting her way out of these tall, tall grasses.
In her way of wandering, she sees that, another figure is here, surrounded by various kind of nature spirits, having the spirit magnet merit, and he will essentially kind of just be walking along the grass, this tall grass, brushing his hands through it, talking to them at various points. All the spirits around him seem very energetic. And if 10 Point can see closer, she'll see that some of the grass begins to blossom and bloom.
In like a logical fashion, like the grains at the top, or completely illogical, like random flowers that make zero sense?
A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
And yeah, she'll
It's not particularly fast, actually. It'll be more like you'll kind of see where he's walked. Yeah, there's some new sprouting growth.
Got some Disney princess shit going on.
Fuck yeah.
And yeah, she's probably trotting along with her head held way up, way up, because tall grass is tall. Blessedly, Fiona are generally on the larger end for lupus forms, so it's not too much of a strain, but yeah, she will divert around, because let's face it, she's inquisitive. She saw bits and pieces before, saw signs in the Tellurian, but seeing it pretty flagrantly in the Umbra, it's just too good to pass up. So she'll come around with a... Sorry?
No, I was saying if Will sees 10 Point, he will turn towards her and kind of beckon her over. He has a very serene and calm-looking smile on his face.
Definitely a nice change from some of the other expressions she has seen on him in the past. Yeah, she will be readily beckoned and come about. Probably easing into breed just because it's simple to do, and while some may consider it a war form, it's just kind of the shape she is. So she'll ease up to make it a little easier to see over the grasses and amble over, still on all fours even in Krynos. The limbs are just long enough to make it a natural way of walking. Bob her head.
Will nods back. What D name are you going by these days? I forget.
It is still easiest, perhaps, to use 10 Point, though I have been twice deeded.
10 Point, then. How does the day find you?
Surprisingly well, Raya. Things are growing calmer on the home front. Pleasant change from some of the chaos in Sept.
He nods. A great victory over the Weaver. The Umbra should be easy for us to traverse.
I have heard, though not much.
Spiders
Katie really
scattered.
should have listened to that damn howl.
Spiders scattered. The giant spirit that was drawing energy killed. Us and our allies were victorious. Gaia's will was done. She worked through us.
Will certainly be a pleasant change of turn to be able to traverse the Umbra properly again without thick webs between us and the other side, and without enemies foaming in wait.
They will regroup, but for now a reprieve.
Oh, they will. It is still a city. But even when they do, it should be less. And thank you, Raya, for your part in that.
Will played some role in it. But I was a conduit for the wild. Nothing more. Its guidance guided him where he needed to be.
And there's a fairly blatant kind of up and down look. You still seem to be, very much so, Raya. Are you not concerned?
Concerned why?
Presuming that the Triad was not maddened. Each has their virtues and each has their vices. Any one in overabundance can be as much a hindrance as a help.
The wild has been a great help in pushing back the Weaver.
Oh, they have.
There's so little of it in this place.
And she again bows her head in agreement. The city is dry of it and in desperate need of balance as well. My concern was simply for your safety. You have seen some of the more dramatic wild spirits. And while they do not necessarily mean to cause harm, they are simply doing what is in their nature.
You understand the most of it. Most wildlings don't mean anything. They just are.
She again nods agreement. Spirits do as they are meant to do, Raya.
You're concerned for my safety, though. Should I be concerned for my safety?
She adopts kind of a thoughtful tilt of head. In the state you are in, Raya, you don't seem to be under any threat.
And what state do you think I am in, 10 Point? The edge of the Fianna.
You've been touched by the wild.
I've been blessed. Will has been blessed.
Is he talking in third person?
Yeah, he has done. He alternates.
And the head shifts slightly to the other side. You have.
It allows the wild to speak through me better. If the wild's voice had been listened to earlier, this fight would have not been so costly and not so difficult.
And she's forced to kind of nod agreement to that as well. Dealing with the problem before it could bloom out of control would certainly have been easier.
Control is just the problem. We're creatures of Gaia. Some of us tend to ignore our instincts. William included.
This is very true. But Gaia is not merely the wild.
Oh, of course not. But the wild is our only uncorrupted sun. Wild is not nature, but nature needs the wild.
It does. In the same term, we're all as it should be. Nature would just as much need the touch of the weaver to grant it guidance, and need the worm in its original incarnation to offer as many ends as beginnings. But we are not so fortunate as for this to be as it was intended.
No, we are not. Ifs and buts.
Sorry, what was the last bit?
Ifs and buts.
Ifs and buts. And if he's stopped walking, she'll kind of ease back into a sit. If he's still going, she'll just idly pace beside him.
No, we'll sit. There's the various. You will see upon close inspection. His dryadic leaves are like he looks wild as shit. Like they're changing color and growing and molting. His eyes are rapidly changing color, and yeah, the spirits around him seem just a little bit more wild. Nothing particular, but
Nothing alarming yet.
nothing alarming aside from his mere proximity. He's clearly radiating a wild taint aura.
I get the feeling that staring too hard at him for too long would give someone a headache. Kind of like those magic eye images.
He's definitely representing pride at this point. And yeah, he sits down and you can see that, yeah, flowers are slowly blooming. They're not like blooming and wilting, like all in the same breath, but over a few minutes you can see flowers begin to bud and seeds begin to ripen all around him.
And she is actually fairly at ease. It's pretty blatant manifestations, but it's not like he's shooting up thorny vines or fucking catching on fire or anything malevolent.
Yeah, absolutely. He absolutely does not seem malevolent. He seems calm as a monk on morphine. Like absolute zen. The appearance of someone who's totally spiritually unconfused. And yeah, he sits there.
And she'll mull over him and the effects around him briefly, especially the spirits that are so happy to be close to him, especially with the way he invigorates them. Have you considered, Raya, taking walks through the city, simply to reinforce what is already there? To give it a breath?
A walk. The effects are lessened in the Tellurian.
I did not mean in the Tellurian.
For the veil. I have not been yet since back into the city. I was enjoying the energy of this place. But perhaps. There is other things, though. I've been performing a ritual around Sept that empowers the wild. I was thinking of doing it in areas of the city.
I have heard that in the past, other guru that came before us have tried to make places for the wild inside the city. And I imagine that in their absence, these places struggle. There are other parks I have seen, though not many. I don't wander far from Sept. I'm easily lost.
Care to bring more wild back to the city? I will be happy to help.
Of course. In the end, what I wish more than anything is for balance. It is a hard, hard thing to strive for, when even the agents of balance are not balanced themselves, but...
In this place, In this city, define balance. What would be perfection?
In a perfect world, Raya, in a truly perfect world, the worm would not be corrupt and the weaver would not be mad, and these things would grow and function and die as intended. But as it is now, I think the best that we can hope for is enough of the wild that the city can breathe. The Gaia isn't choking inside her limits, and that it is still given enough function and form by the Weaver for the beings that reside in it to survive.
A city by its very nature, though, stifles Gaia. She is not here. Concrete and glass. Fumes. Litter. High-rises. While these exist, how can you attain this balance you want? Would you build more parks? Plant more trees?
And she mulls it over, very thoughtfully, actually.
What is our end game here? Are we simply to survive?
In the end, our duty is not specifically to fight the Weaver. Our duty is to fight for Gaia, whether it is the Weaver that is the threat, the worm that is the threat. I'm reminded of... It has.
But this city is more worm than weaver most of the time.
And it is an uphill
Corruption.
battle. It is seated deep.
So I ask you, what would you do to bring Gaia back to this place, truly?
She even goes so far as to bring up one of her big old claws and kind of scratch under her chin thoughtfully. I have heard of the places where humans gathered back home, where the streets were not always concrete, where they were stone and dirt, where there were many gardens, Raya, many open places, grass, trees. But still there was enough form and function for humans to survive. They can't function out in Gaia as she is.
It was the same back where I'm from. Not far from your Septon Island, I think. Rolling hills, countryside. Small villages. Do you think this is an acceptable balance?
I would say that it is a balance with which I could live, and so could humankind.
How many people in these villages? How many people per square mile compared to central Manhattan?
I couldn't say. I was rarely allowed to leave the Sept, and then even not to go into the towns and the villages.
Less or more, you think?
Many less.
Many less?
Probably.
10 times less? 100 times less? 1,000 times less?
And she kind of takes a glance out towards the cityscape, which is perhaps more cobweb than lively web at this point, but just looking out at the outrageous skyscrapers, the numbers escape me. It's so many versus
Countless.
so few.
So if this is what you want, return humanity in this place to some peaceable coexistence. Nothing is ever perfect. Tides rise and fall, resembling perfect balance. What will be the main obstacle to achieving this? Place.
In this place?
Is it spiral dances?
Oh, the worm would muster his forces to defend what he has.
Would that be the main obstacle?
I couldn't say. There is such a populace, and certainly there are guru who would disagree.
The populace? The humans, you mean?
Humans are easy to shrug off when it is a few here and there, Raya, but in such numbers, she kind of jerks her head towards the city. I don't imagine that they would like seeing their life changed so dramatically, to not have their towers of steel and glass. And many, I think, do not know how to live, even in such a way as they do in the villages, coexisting, trading
Could they not?
skills. I don't
Could
know.
they not change, adapt, evolve?
One would hope.
Is that not Gaia's way?
Gaia's way does not seem to have touched humankind so much as it perhaps once did.
Pity. And Will's nodding in agreement. What to do then?
There are the kin. There are humans who believe in a different way.
Very few.
Again, you questioned me on something I know little about. I was given very little contact with humankind before, and even now, I very rarely walk the streets, especially on
You
my
have
own.
walked the streets though, even if rarely.
Hmm?
Teeming masses of people. Walk the streets that, if rarely. Teeming masses of people.
No, they are. It
Do they look
makes...
happy? Do they look content?
At
Do they know
times.
Gaia's love?
In the parks. I have seen smiling. I have seen people lay out their blankets on the grass. But more, as you walk the streets, no. I worried about being picked out as different or strange, but so few even look up.
The old keeper of the land here, an Octena named Katori, told on my packmates a fact I did not like. He believed that over 9 out of 10 of the humans here are beyond saving. Banes work their way into their souls. They have their addictions, their hatreds, their pettiness. So many things, there is no room left for Gaia. No room left for them to be the animal they're supposed to be. Like this city. So little room for us to breathe.
It seems that way.
Do you think it would be a favor to return them to that state?
To return them to something that can coexist with Gaia properly, you mean?
He nods. Or as close as possible.
I should think that they would resist the change. But perhaps there are those who would appreciate it. I can hope. Again, I do not speak to the people in the city. I don't draw attention.
You can have an opinion though. I rarely speak to the people in the city either.
No, but you have grown up among humans. You have lived as a human.
I have.
You have a
Will
far
did.
better understanding of what they might wish for or rail against than I ever could.
What they wish for. The same things Will used to wish for before he knew the truth. A new iPhone. pretty girlfriend. Status symbols. Petty concerns, good food, more money. Is their life any better? They to buy things they don't need. They're trapped.
It sounds as though, whether they realize it or not, they still wish what any animal wishes. They want good territory. They want food. They want a mate. They may not see it that way.
They do. But a dog is not a wolf. A captive creature, drip-fed and controlled, is far from Gaia. The Weaver's influence controls them, and the Worm's influence corrupts them.
And the touch of the wild in this city is all too rare.
They flock to these parks, somehow sensing that it's a good place. Close their marriages here. They take photographs here. And to sleep. They would call it fresh air. Or something like that.
And she just kind of eases out of breath. She actually goes so far as to take a very human position, kind of setting back, plopping her palms behind her so that she can rest back on her palms and just takes in a proper breath. I can see why. The city stinks. This place is so different from home.
I remember when I first came here, got off that aeroplane at JFK, stepped into the city and thinking, wow, this place smells. And then within a week, you don't notice it anymore. You get used to it, like they have.
She kind of utters a little bit of a snort. Not in disagreement. In fact, if anything, in agreement. Would that it was possible to take a place like this and break it down into something simpler. Something with more land, with dirt streets. Something where each person had room to breathe without breathing in someone else's old air. Or breathing in the gases.
What if there was a way?
Is there even enough land to hold them all, Raya? If they were not living on top of each other.
That's the crux of the issue, isn't it, 10 Point? Sprung out and the humans come to populate it. They built it for themselves. For their children. And for their elderly. Well, there are so many humans in this place. Any form of change would be impossible.
And were all the humans to spread out, Raya, there would be no wild left. That wasn't touched by the Weaver, touched by the worm that follows in their footsteps.
Again, you're quite right. So what's the problem here? What's the constant factor?
And it looks not as if she doesn't understand, but certainly as if she's measuring up, as if she is assessing how good an idea it is to be blunt. And finally seems to settle on it. The problem, Raya, is that humans overpopulate dramatically. There's a reason that when the wild raises its hand, when a tornado rips down what would once have been open farmland, now so many humans die. There's a reason that tsunamis kill so many hurricanes. It's because there are so many piled on top of each other. There's no room left for these things. Sometimes Gaia raises her fist. Sometimes she tries to make a dent in it. And still more pile on top of more.
Are we not Gaia's fist? Is that not what the nation is? Her avenging warriors.
Oh,
Is that
we
not why she
are.
gave us Luna's gift?
We are, Raya. That there are too many tribes protective of too many kin, and all who might be related to them and become kin in later generations, to the point where it feels as though all of humankind is claimed.
My own tribe would be one of the main proponents of this. Them, the truth catcher. In my tribe, we meditate upon what peace is. We try to understand it. It's simply calm. But nature is not peaceful, not uncruel. The wolverine kills for pleasure. The cat tortures its food. Anteaters callously destroy thousands of lives in one meal.
Death is a part of life, Raya.
It is.
Once upon a time, the worm served its purpose, and it was the natural end. And now it does not end. It corrupts and spreads.
Death still happens there.
Oh, it does. It still brings an eventual end to the things it touches, but not before spreading further.
He nods. I've not spoken to too many who have spoken to me about it among the set disagree with what happened at the hospital. Jacob and Chloe. I think too many humans died. That it wasn't worth the cost. I'd like to know what you think, 10 Point.
And she's again left, kind of scratching thoughtfully at her jaw. I am, perhaps, more objective on the subject of human life, having never lived as one, having never sympathized with their wants and needs. I treasure my kin, but these are not my kin. There are too many stacked on too many. And if those that died were ones that were weaker, were possessed of diseases that they might have passed on, if nothing else, one might argue that you have strengthened the whole by ridding them of the weakest.
Were weaver tainted. And many of them were drones. They fought us mindlessly with Mother Spider. And some of them would have been. Will doesn't think so, but a small price to pay, I think. To do. For us to bring that spider down.
It is easy.
For us to rid the city.
It is easy to be appalled by sheer numbers. But when one compares the number that have died to the number who still live and will continue to live peacefully, or at least somewhat peacefully as a result, the results cannot be argued with.
And I wonder, in that same day that happened, how many humans, even just in this country, died because they've been withheld food or medical care, of pointless, greedy violence. How many died simply of neglect? Alone in a flat because her children are too busy to care for her. Hundreds died. The loss of human life, it was less than a drop in the ocean.
One must figure that in a battle, a real battle that holds meaning, many lives are often lost. It is unfortunate, but sometimes the unfortunate is necessary. It was not so long ago that my people believed in sacrificing life to gain what needed gaining. Sacrifices must be made.
Where do we move forward from this? If you were Alpha of the Sept, what would you order the packs to do? Not to merely survive here, hold on, protect the park. How would you address the balance?
And those little pale brow dots raise a bit. Just at the very idea of, like, if you were Alpha of the Sept, it's just kind of like, huh. But she'll turn her eyes again towards the city line, mulling briefly. If I had my way, Raya. She just kind of inquires that much. Like the do you really want to hear it sort of thing.
If you had your way. As was unquestioned.
If I had my way, Raya, there would almost certainly be great loss of human life, but there would be great strides made in rooting out the worm, in destroying things that had been touched by it, in keeping the Weaver in check, and in turn, ensuring that the wild did not grow too far beyond its share. But by the time I was done, even the wild must be kept in balance. Not controlled, not by the Weaver, not in that fashion, but every member of the Triad has its purpose, and every member of the Triad can cause great calamity if left unchecked.
Seems like a moot point, doesn't it?
It does. The only way to truly achieve balance would be to find a way to return the Weaver's mind, to rid the worm of corruption. But even as an alpha, Even as an alpha of a mighty sept with many guru and many packs beneath me, it would still be almost impossible to do these things. Perhaps if all the finest of the nation turned their eyes on this goal rather than lesser ones.
We can start small though, can't we?
We can. And we must. I think with a mind to the here and now, if I had my way, Raya, there would be more pushes into the city, more destruction of the companies and the humans that perpetrated them, that spread the worm. Things like this secondhand plastics. I'm sure that Castrophony resides beneath that factory, hides there, corrupts everything it comes into contact with.
Difficult though. How many packs are we? 4, 5? I would say the feat would be difficult, if not impossible. And if we were to commit to it with any ferocity, we may reveal ourselves, and it should all be for nothing.
One step at a time.
What are those other ways?
She
Ways that don't involve tooth and claw.
turns a curious look to him. And what ways are those?
The wild has whispered to me. It's whispered to Will. And I'll keep listening. It's guided us correctly so far.
And she pitches her ears forward into a more attentive kind of gesture. And what does it whisper?
There's a smile. Beautiful things, 10 point.
Does the wild have a direction for us then?
The wild is directionless. It simply inspires. I do hope, though, when it speaks, the sept will listen. It didn't listen before. Caused all sorts of trouble. And in the end, it was right.
The Guru are not free of the same struggles that humankind has. Too few grow knowing of the nation, knowing their purpose, and the time spent believing that they are no better than humankind. It taints their ability to be objective. There's something to be said for using the right mouth and the right words to say what needs saying.
Fortunately, you might be right. Politics, ego. Human inventions. Unimportant. No individual is important to a species' survival. Chloe doesn't understand this.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. It is a simple natural law.
The needs of Gaia outweigh birth. I'm glad we've had a constructive conversation, 10 Point.
As am I. Try to remember the right mouth, the right words. I should be at least passingly able to aid you in this, presuming that your motivation remains truly in line with Gaia's.
My motivations? Will's motivations are unimportant. He's only a conduit now. What I want don't matter. It's what Gaia needs. I just hope others can realize that too.
While I will not fight this notion, there will be precious few on this sept who take well to what they will see as the possession and abuse of one of their own as a conduit. Not unless they know truly and properly that it is a position willingly taken. Too
One individual doesn't
fewer,
matter in the scheme of things.
perhaps, to an objective mind. But we are not objective. If we were able to remain objective, we wouldn't scuffle over needless things. We wouldn't fight over a few words. We wouldn't battle for dominance and for the right to choose. We would have a unified purpose. But that is not the way of it.
I disagree. We would battle. But there'd only be one survivor. No coddling. True evolution.
No, I want that too.
Proper change.
If only one was to survive, how would that one alone be able to spread Gaia's will?
That will be quite the battle. If only one Garu survived. It's not how Gaia works.
It is not. But you have opened my eyes somewhat. The packs each think they have something that is so important enough that it becomes more to them than our end goal. Perhaps a reminder that we are all serving the same purpose is in order.
Will stands up. I may take your advice and go walk in the city. While it's quiet.
It is the best time to do so.
See you around 10 Point. And yeah,
It's not.
we'll wander off. Where he's been sitting, you can see that the grass has grown and sprouted. But you also get a faint sense of some of it's grown and some of it's begun to decay and rot. And out of that
Is it decaying and... Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and out of that decay and rot, you see that new life has sprung.
So essentially all stages of the natural cycle.
All things that would have happened, they've just been accelerated.
And she'll probably remain there as he wanders on out of sight and mull over that spot where he's sat and the effect that he's had on it. And she will eventually, probably well after he's left, do much the same, easing herself up and ambling back in the direction of her pack cabin. Still thinking on some portions of it, certainly. And she'll actually pause partway back, turning and moving towards the heart of the cairn. And with that, I suppose we should say thank you, players, for playing, watchers for watching. We'll see you next time on the Living World of Darkness, Rage Across New York.